Hello and welcome to another Royal Reviewer live pop-up chat. I hope you are all doing absolutely fabulously, and of course today I want to tackle kind of two stories that are kind of intermingled and connected. The first, of course, because the Queen is still on her annual Christmas break until February, until Accession Day when she leaves. So I want to tell you who's at church with the Queen, like I do every week, but also there have been even more updates from the ongoing incident with Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh's ongoing road traffic accident, RTA. And I want to address, I suppose, really, the passenger of the Kia basically has done an interview, a newspaper tabloid interview, and has been making some statements and some comments about, particularly about Philip's sort of non-apology. And I think basically I've looked at it all. I've read everything. I'm going to read you what she has said if you haven't already read it yourself. And I'm going to comment on, well, I'm going to break it down and comment on why I think this non-apology has happened. And I think there is a very simple reason for it. One which, if you think about it, it literally makes sense. So, first of all, I'm going to tackle the story of who is with the Queen at church. Now, I was going to say Sandringham, but it wasn't Sandringham. In fact, I think I did say Sandringham earlier. I'm so used to saying Sandringham. It wasn't actually Sandringham. So today is Sunday the 20th of January 2019, and the Queen was driven to church. And again, a little bit of controversy. She wasn't wearing her seatbelt in the back. The car was a chauffeur-driven black Bentley. Now, the service this week was actually held at St Peter's Church in Wolverton. Now, Wolverton is situated literally about 2 miles away from the main Sandringham house. And again, as there has been since Christmas, there have been no sighting of Philip out for church. I think that's kind of becoming just a norm now. So I don't think, he wasn't trying to avoid the cameras or anything like that. That's just kind of how it's been since Christmas Day. We have not seen Philip attending church with the Queen or any member of the royal family. Who was in attendance? Well, Prince Andrew was the Queen's companion in the car today. So the Queen was wearing a light brown coat and a matching hat decorated with colourful flowers, mostly in red and green, which I thought looked rather lovely. And of course, the Queen once famously said, red and green should never be seen. But it is winter, and we have just had Christmas, and red and green do go together in terms of Christmas. So I think you're safe, Your Majesty, to wear red and green at this occasion. She was wearing a lovely pair of black gloves and of course her Lorna handbag, which is essential, and pearl earrings, and we couldn't quite see, but I would imagine a pearl necklace too, which looked, well, she just looked lovely. I mean, she was glowing. She had beautiful makeup on, and her skin is gorgeous. It is so smooth. For 92 going on 93, amazing skin. I mean, she really does have the skin of a queen. She has queenly skin. She does indeed. And her makeup looked immaculate. The lips, the rouge. She looked lovely, and she was smiling. So, regardless of what's happened this week, she was still smiling. Maybe she saw my Dancing Queen video. Maybe, who knows? So Andrew, Duke of York, Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, rather, joined the Queen. So he was actually driven to the church in the same Bentley. Well-wishers were present, which I think is also a really good sign that people turned up to obviously wish the Queen well after all that she's been through this week. Now, I want to just go and find the chat room, because I want to see what all of you guys are saying. And then we will kind of move on to the next bit of the story, which is where I'm going to kind of unpick the whole interview that Emma Fairweather gave. And Emma Fairweather was the lady, the passenger involved in the car who had the broken wrist. So we'll talk about that in a second. Hello to everyone in the chat room. And of course, lots of people. Oh, Maggie says the Dancing Queen video had you cracking up. So yes, hello to everybody. Let's move on. So as we know, this week we had the road traffic accident. A day later, Philip was seen driving again with no seatbelt. The Queen was seen driving twice without a seatbelt. The Queen was seen today in the car not wearing a seatbelt, even though she was a passenger. The police actually issued an official statement. The Norfolk Constabulary said that they are aware of the photographs, and I think they are referring to the ones of Philip driving without a seatbelt. And this is what I quote from them. They say that suitable words of advice have been given to the driver. So that obviously means that they have, and I don't think, as in other reports that have said that he's been cautioned, I don't think it was a caution. I think if he had been cautioned, they would have said in that statement that he had been cautioned. What they were very careful to say is that words of advice were given. And I think that they are suitable words of advice. I would agree. Regardless of who you are, regardless of whether it's a private road, on a private estate, or a public road, or whether you're the Queen and you're exempt from the law entirely, I think just as a matter of safety, just to be sensible, that seatbelts should be worn. And hopefully, this may be a little bit of a wake-up call, and hopefully everyone will buckle up. So hopefully that will just serve as just a little gentle reminder. I think that's what the police are saying, a gentle reminder that, just to be safe for yourself and for everyone else's safety, that you just buckle up. And I think that's basically what they're saying. But I don't think that a caution was given. Today, there were pictures of Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. I think he was either leaving Sandringham or he was driving at Sandringham somewhere. And they're saying that they can't see that he's wearing a seatbelt or not. Well, I zoomed in on the photograph, and yes, you cannot see an actual seatbelt. However, he's wearing quite a padded coat, and you can clearly see an indentation that is kind of seatbelt shaped on his shoulder. So even though you can't see the seatbelt, I can clearly see an indentation in the photograph, which to me clearly shows that he was wearing a seatbelt. And I think the royals should take the police advice, because from now on, every time any of them are out driving, there is going to be a paparazzi with a long lens, or some kind of good lens, that is going to be picking up on whether they are wearing a seatbelt or not. So I would take the police advice strongly and buckle up, because you are going to be under scrutiny, and just don't put yourself under that scrutiny. There's no need to put yourself under that. Just buckle up and and move on, basically. So now I want to open up the article. Oh, by the way, I have put links in the description of the pictures from not from Sandringham. I keep saying Sandringham. It's not Sandringham. It's St. Peter's Church in Wolferton. I have the church photographs in the link in the description, and the article which I'm going to be kind of quoting Emma from now. So please open them up in another window. That is fine. So let's start. So the lady in question is Emma Fairweather, who is 46 years old and I believe a mother of two. She was the passenger in the Kia who had the broken wrist. And you can clearly see in the photographs that I've linked, she has her arm up in a bandage and a sling. By the way, I think she's a royalist. By what she says, she's definitely a big fan of the royal family. So that's kind of a good sign. So she has said in the article, in the interview that she gave, and I do believe it was to the Daily Mirror or the Sunday Mirror, she said that Philip had not apologised, which she's kind of claiming conflicts with what the palace has put out. But we'll get to that in a moment. So, yes, let's just kind of read a little bit. So, Ms. Fairweather was told by the police that she would hear from the Queen and the Duke, and that she would receive a message. Now, she says that it's quite a nonsensical message. And this is where I kind of come in, because I don't think it's nonsensical at all. I think it's all totally purposeful. So the message from the Queen and Duke that she says says that the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh would like to be remembered to you. Now she says that that's nonsensical. I don't think so, and kind of here's why. So we know that there is an ongoing police investigation, which means if it's ongoing, it means that they haven't concluded yet who is legally at fault. Now, I think we all probably have our own suspicions about who is at fault and where the fault lies and where the problem and where the issue lays. Now, just because we think one thing doesn't necessarily mean that it's officially true yet. So, we're going through a period where the investigation's being carried out, and everybody involved needs to be extremely careful about what they say, about making allegations, and, admitting things when things haven't actually been officially, confirmed. So, I think, on probably advice of the police, I think that message is very carefully worded. It is designed to let Miss Fairweather and the other lady involved, I'm not sure of her name, I don't think she's come forward, but it's to let the two ladies know that the Queen and the Duke are thinking of them, which of course they are, but it is not an apology, because technically you can't apologise for something if it's not technically your fault. And even though we think that we know whose fault it is, and we are probably correct in what we think, but officially, you can't really apologise for something that you haven't been, that hasn't been determined that is your fault. So, I think it's a very carefully constructed, worded message that is designed not to admit any guilt until the investigation is concluded, but also to let those ladies know that they are in the thoughts of the Queen and the Duke. And I think that is very important. And I think Miss Fairweather kind of needs to realise that actually they could have said nothing. But the fact is that they have actually reached out, which is what the palace said. The palace said that they have been sent well wishes. Well, that is, I suppose, their version of well wishes. Now I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and read about what Miss Fairweather says. So she said the speed limit was 60 miles per hour, but your friend was doing no more than 50. So she's saying that the Kia was doing 50 miles per hour. She kept thinking that the prince was going to stop, although she didn't know it was the prince, but he didn't. So obviously he's saying he was dazzled by the sun, couldn't see, pulled out, it was an accident. She says, as we approached, I could make out that it was an elderly driver. My friend was braking and seemed so in control, but I was terrified. It must have been seconds, but it felt like half a lifetime. I had no idea at the time that it was Prince Philip. I was just thinking of the baby. I don't think I realised that my side of the car had taken most of the impact. So the Duke of Edinburgh reportedly said, and again I stress reportedly, I'm such a fool after being pulled from the wreckage. I can neither confirm or deny that. That is just speculation at this point. Let me just scroll through a little bit. Yes, a Norfolk Constabulary spokeswoman said the force was aware of the photographs of the prince driving without his seatbelt, and suitable words of advice have been given to the driver. I'm just skipping past a few photographs. Now, again, Miss Fairweather suffered a broken wrist in the incident, and she said the lady came over, and this is Mrs. Warne, so the gentleman who spoke out, Mr. Warne, this is his wife, so she's saying the lady came over and said, you do know who that is, don't you? I thought it's just an elderly gentleman, but she said, it's Prince Philip. And witnesses said that Prince Philip was whisked away 10 minutes later by royal aides. Now, the palace said that contact has been made privately, which it has, and well wishes have been exchanged. Now, this is where Miss Fairweather and I slightly differ. She says that is not true. Well, I don't think it is true. I think what has been given to Miss Fairweather is the well wishes. But like I say, there is a legal reason, I think, behind it. So Miss Fairweather says she's not heard from the Queen or her husband. Well, she has. And she added, I know the Queen is a busy lady, but I was really excited at the idea she might phone me. Instead, I got a call from a police family liaison officer. The message he passed on didn't even make sense. Well, it does. I've just explained why it makes sense. He said the Queen and Prince Philip would like to be remembered to you. Well, I think that says it all. They are actually thinking of the two ladies, but they can't say any more for legal reasons. Now, the issue of phoning her, again, it's an ongoing investigation, and when there's an ongoing investigation between two parties, the police would have advised that no contact other than through them goes on between the two parties, and I think that's what we're seeing here. So even though Miss Fairweather might have liked a phone call, it's probably under the advice of the police that isn't possible. So I think that's why we're not seeing any telephone or personal exchanges. However, I think that is probably likely to change once the investigation has been completed, and either way, Philip's fault or not, I am sure that there will be some kind of personal, person on person communication. Now, the only thing I would say, oh, actually, no, I'm going to carry on a little bit first. She says, I love the royals, but I've been ignored and rejected, and I'm in a lot of pain. It would mean the world to me if Prince Philip said sorry, but I have no idea if he's sorry at all. What would it have taken for him and the Queen to send me a card and a bunch of flowers? Well, again, I think that's just on advice of the police that limited contact is made between the two parties until the investigation comes to a conclusion. And I'm sure flowers, maybe even some kind of contact is probably going to be forthcoming once the whole issue has been sorted out. Now, my own personal advice to the royal family is don't make a phone call. I wouldn't make a phone call. If you are going to make any contact with these two ladies, I would do it in person. I would invite them to Sandringham. I would meet them in person, in private. The reason for that is that now that Miss Fairweather has gone to the press and done interviews, especially with the Sunday Mirror, we all know what happens, don't we? Miss Fairweather's phone has probably, got a record button on it to record telephone phone calls, probably on advice from the Sunday Mirror. I mean, I'm only speculating, but you can imagine it, can't you? That the newspapers would say, well, if Philip rings, press this button, it will record the telephone conversation. We'll pay you money for the telephone conversation. So you can just imagine what's probably going down behind the scenes here. I don't think Miss Fairweather is is a necessarily untrustworthy person, but when people that aren't usually involved with the press get involved with the press, they can often get swept up and persuaded to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. So, if I was Prince Philip and the Queen, I would not make a phone call, seeing as obviously Miss Fairweather has, put her trust in the media, which I don't think you should ever do. Don't do it. Don't put your trust in the media. They will eat you and they will spit you out alive. So, Miss Fairweather, a warning to you if you are watching, don't do any more press. Just don't. Nothing good is going to come of you doing any press. It really isn't. So, if I was the Queen and Prince Philip, once all this has been sorted out, I would meet the two ladies in person, in private. Because otherwise, a telephone call could be recorded and then it could be put out literally everywhere. And that is what will happen if there is a telephone call made. I am positive of that. So, my advice would be meet them in person once it's all been sorted out. But I'm sure, an apology, if one is required, will be given at that time. And I think that's kind of all about it, really. Oh yes, and the Daily Mail also, where this article is from, is also now saying if you know the driver of the car, contact us so that we can contact her. So the media is already very much pouncing. They're pouncing. Don't get eaten. Don't get spit out and chewed and half digested and regurgitated. Don't do it, ladies. If you're watching, don't do it. Just stop. Don't do any more press. Nothing good is going to come of it. Trust me. Just let the law naturally take its course, and then I'm sure everything will be sorted. Miss Fairweather seems like a lovely lady. She seems like she said that she was excited to hear from the Queen. So I think, you know, a personal meeting, maybe an invitation to a dinner or something like that, would probably, you know, really make Miss Fairweather's day, because we all know that the whole thing is probably just one big accident. So, you know, wine and dine them. Wine and dine Miss Fairweather, and I'm sure she'll be very, very happy. But yes, please do not talk to the police anymore. And that's kind of my assessment on the whole matter. So, just because he hasn't apologised doesn't mean that he won't apologise in the future. I want to see what all you guys are saying, whether you agree or you don't agree. I'm going to kind of go all the way up the conversations and scroll down. So hello to everyone who has joined in the chat, wherever you may be. Just kind of going down to scroll through. Jamie says, red and green should never be seen. Indeed. Lady Buckingham says, how do they know which church you'll be going to when she changes like this? Well, it's kind of usually at least once during the period, she kind of changes church a little bit. And I haven't heard about any announcement system of it. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure how they would know, unless it's kind of like local talk and word of mouth, because you know, if the Queen is expected in your parish church, I would imagine that the congregation that usually turns up will have been told. So I'm imagining that, you know, word would probably get out by word of mouth. Kathy G says she made a point of saying they were going 50 and not 60. Well, again, that's probably another part of the police investigation, to investigate how fast the Kia was going to. And again, we can't speculate about that. Dreamcast said, hi Elliot, sent you a message on your Iron Duke video, RE the Chelsea Flower Show. Oh, I will have to take a look. Thank you for your message, whatever it may be. Mary West says, legal in the US. If you apologise verbally or in writing, you are taking the blame. Therefore, open yourself up to a lawsuit. So it may be for legal reasons, which is kind of what I said, probably on police advice. Sonia says, how do we actually know that they are not wearing seatbelts? Perhaps they have lap belts. Well, I did think that. However, when the Queen was wearing a seatbelt, we could clearly see the seatbelt. And on the photographs where they say she wasn't, we kind of couldn't. And I'm not entirely sure of the legality in the UK about lap belts in cars. I know they're okay on things like buses, on coaches, but I'm not so sure about cars, about the legality of it. And yes, the BBC reported the police that the Prince Philip had taken a police eye exam. That is true, and he passed. And that's a comment by Arnold Sanders. Yes, he did indeed pass. Kathy G says, Piers Morgan will have Miss Fairweather on his show next. I wouldn't put it past. And, you know, it's what I said. The media will eat you and chew you up. Keep away. Keep away indeed. Just kind of scrolling through. Lots of people saying hello. And yes, it is the law in the UK that you have to wear your seatbelt, unless you are the Queen, which you can actually get away with because you are the law. HM the King says there are no seatbelts in the state Bentley because it's a state vehicle. It does not need them or any tax registration. It is like the sovereign has laws of its own. Well, there we go. So perhaps the Queen can get away with it in the state Bentley. A very handy vehicle to have. I'm sure she pops to the local the local Tesco in it. Lots of room for your shopping. Okay. Terry says, I am not surprised she's talking to the press. She wants her 15 minutes of fame. I don't know. She doesn't look like that kind of woman to me. I kind of think that she's been found out who she is and contacted and kind of got swept up. I get that impression. Maybe that's just me. I do like to see the good in people, I know. But she kind of seems to me a little bit like... I don't like to use the word gullible, but I think, you know, if you've got very persuasive press coming at you, you know, do this interview, we'll do this, blah, 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 blah. I think she may be persuaded to and get swept up in the whole media storm, which is not good. DC says, I do hope that it is found the prince is at fault. He will apologise to the woman involved. Again, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation. We will have to wait and see what the outcome of it is. Master of Public Health says, okay, that is what the remembrance phrase means. I think so too. Sophie makes a very good comment. To flip a Land Rover, you need quite a lot of speed. I would agree. Which again is something which the police will be investigating. Natalie R says, I agree, Prince Philip is at fault. He should definitely issue a public apology. Again, we have to wait and let the law take its course. Ava42 says, I think it was weird that she would expect Queen Elizabeth II to contact her directly and send cars or flowers after this event. Exactly. Maybe not until afterwards. Nick Gurr says, shout me out for a shout out on my channel. I'm expecting a shout out. A good one. Rising Rhapsody says, remembered, thinking of you would be the more informal wording. I agree with you, Elliot. Well wishes indeed. Accidents do happen. No matter who you are, think a bit of silence would be best. Yes, exactly. Mary Wester thinks that the statement is kind of weird. Why not say wishing you well? I think it's a very carefully constructed statement which kind of gives... You can't twist it. It's almost kind of like so weird you can't twist it. But yet it does still convey that the Duke and the Queen are thinking without saying it. If you know what I mean. It is a slightly odd message, but it does kind of do what it intends to do. Kathy G says the Prince doesn't have to issue a public apology, no one else would have to. Again, which is why I said do it in private. Meet them, do it in private should you need to. I'm just kind of skipping through a few, so sorry about if I've missed your comments. I do apologise. There you go, I'm apologising, I do apologise. Yvette says speed, not relevant. Prince Philip broke traffic, period. Fair weather, had a right of way. She waited. I'm such a fool, tough situation. I suppose fair comments. Stephanie says the prince pulled out in front of her and she couldn't stop in time. Again, that's something the police will be looking into. Cindy says, I think I should conduct the investigation. Well, I think I'd be very fair. Floss and Rog Payne says, good old-fashioned statement to be remembered to you means in their thoughts. Thanks for clarifying that. It does. It's a weird way of going around things. It's kind of like going around the whole hill, you know, instead of just climbing up. But you get there in the end. And it's definitely something that can't be construed because no one kind of understands what it means unless you really think about it. Mrs. Whatever says, time for Prince Philip to hang up his driving gloves. Often elderly people must be forced to stop driving. Well, again, until the investigation's carried out, we don't know it was age-related. If what Philip is saying is true and that he was blinded by the sun, I can vouch on that day the sun was low and it was blinding. I was out myself driving, I got dazzled. I was at a traffic island, I was dazzled. I'm not in the same location as Sandringham, but the sun was low that day, it was dazzling. So anyone can be dazzled. My age, Philip's age, he made a judgment call. It turned out that it was the wrong judgment call. So accidents do happen. However, as with any accident, someone is at fault, and that's what the investigation needs to determine, but it is not necessarily due to age. I must make that point. Lots of people having their opinions on who's at fault. I'm sure people people have their own ideas. Cindy says, "Go Elliot, you tell it." I'm trying. Again, lots of people. Becky says, "You are correct." Thank you so much. Master Public Health says, "I'm sure someone is trying to pay her now." Keep away from the press. Don't go there. Nashia says, "Got her teachings from Samantha Markle." It is kind of similar. The press, you will not come out on top. Let's put it that way. Stephanie says, "You are correct. They should invite the two ladies to tea. Be patient. The Royals will contact you later." Totally. And yes, George, the press can be cruel at times. They can indeed. I'm just kind of going up. Hang on. I've kind of skipped a few questions. Hang on. Yes, if you've only just got the notification, you've missed loads. I'm so sorry. I literally can't repeat everything. If you are watching on catch up, then obviously you will see the whole thing. So if you've missed anything, do go back and catch up. D. Jamelia says, "Hello Elliot, why did Prince Philip take the car that day?" He was driving from Wood Farm, so he's staying at Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. It looked like he was driving back to the main Sandringham house to see the Queen. The Sandringham estate is kind of split by public roads, and he was crossing this public road to get to the other part of the estate, and that's when the accident happened. So yes, he was travelling from basically his home, Wood Farm, to go to the main Sandringham house. I think I just saw a comment, "Amazing tiara." It is the Queen Victoria tiara, the sapphire tiara. Okay, I'm just kind of scrolling through, and I do think everyone should wear seatbelts if there are seatbelts. Okay, and I've kind of got down to the bottom of the questions. How are we doing for time? I'm going to leave it here. I have said all that I need to. Oh, hang on. I just realised I've got some more notes on the back. Let me see if it's anything that I've missed. I don't think I have. No, I'm fine. Oh, yes. To prove the point about the dazzling sun, Miss Fairweather said that it was a grey sky and there was no sun. Yes, it was a grey sky, but peeking out under the grey sky was the dazzling sun. And there are some photographs floating around where someone went a few days later and stood at the spot where Philip was, and indeed, just like it was on that day, there was dazzling sun. So if you want evidence that dazzling sun can dazzle you in that spot, the photographs are out there. So do go and find those. So I'm going to sign off here. It's literally, what is it? It's 10, 12, 11. It's an hour and a half away from my weekly premiere of my weekly vlog. So do go to that video, set the reminder. So click the reminder button. If you're watching on catch up, just go and watch the weekly vlog, and you will see what's been happening in my week. So I do hope that you are able to join me for the live premiere of my weekly vlog. I will be in the chat room chatting to you guys as it happens. It is my favourite time of the week, so please feel free to join me. So if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and also hit that notification bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. And also, it just takes a second. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. It really does help with my goal to reach 100,000 subscribers. Please do it. Hit subscribe. So, until my weekly vlog premiere, from me, intro